Wow, welcome, Jaynie.
Hello.
Thank you for coming down. You've driven quite a way to get here and visit.
Yes, I've driven from West London near Heathrow Airport
Yeah.
today. Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
thank you. That's really nice. The reason I asked you to come on is I know you're celebrating the Sobriety birthday.
that's
A little
correct.
birdie called Facebook told me. How many years?
That's correct. On the 16th of May, I celebrated 14 years
Wow.
of continuous clean time from drugs, alcohol,
Wow.
no cigarettes for 12 years, and
See a halo above
yeah,
you. Yeah. How does that feel?
really, it's it is amazing. I'm still blown away by it. Still, even
Yeah.
today. You know, I was I was recently going through my Facebook. We were talking, and I was looking for a photo of me when I was a child, and it sort of took me on this reverse journey through my recovery and then back into my addiction,
Yeah.
and looking at the photos and recalling what it was like being that person. I couldn't imagine 14 days without a
Yeah.
drug or an alcohol.
Hmm.
Like to be in a position where I sit here and my life is normal, clean and sober, and it is.
And fun?
I love it. I love living. I love it. I live life to the absolute
Yeah.
max. It's like, I worked today and found a little bird. Little bird fell out of a tree.
Wow.
And he's been to Tesco's with me today. He's been chirping all around. I've bought him baby food. I've left some
Yeah.
of the guys at work actually babysitting for him now.
Really?
So, yeah, and then I've driven here to, accept your very gracious invitation to come and speak about my
Yeah.
life as such, really, and my journey into recovery. And every day's pretty much the same. It's like,
Yeah.
if, a friend said to me, if I could give you one thing today, what would it be? I said, just give us a couple of extra hours, will ya?
Really?
So that I can.
So you're
I can
loving
get,
every minute?
yeah, so I can get some
Wow.
more stuff in.
How
Yeah.
different is that from the old days and old ways? I mean, that's amazing. And the fact that you found a bird and wanted to look after it and
Yeah.
nurture it. I mean, people who are in addiction would just walk past it. Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, what is that?"
I wouldn't
Yeah,
have even
yeah.
seen it. I wouldn't
Yeah.
have even seen it. I'd have
Yeah.
been so wrapped up in whatever trauma, drama, party.
Or one of the two. Yeah.
Yeah, I might not even just been able to see full stop.
Yeah.
Stumbling along to a miserable end, so to speak. Is it? It says in the wonderful book that helped me to find a way out. But my life is vastly different to what it was when I was in active addiction. Even to when I grew up as a child, it was strange because looking at this photo of this little girl, I come from a really dysfunctional, traumatized childhood,
Yeah.
and it didn't feel like it when I was growing up because it was normal. And where I grew up in Notting Hill, come from a really hard family, working class. I'm a barra girl by trade. We had fruit and flower stalls up the West End. My father, it's passed down from my grandfather, and it was very normal. Everybody seemed to pretty much have a life like that,
Yeah.
and and my life's a million miles from that today. Coming into recovery from alcoholism and addiction didn't just, it didn't just take away drugs and alcohol out of the equation of my life, because drugs and alcohol were never really my problem. They were a solution
Was it?
to my problem. My problem centres within me. And I do believe there were times in my life, I think if I wasn't an addict or an alcoholic, I would be dead now,
Wow.
because the pain and the inability to be able to cope with what was going on was so unbearable. Drugs and alcohol, it did for me what I couldn't do for myself at the time. And, growing up in that environment, I took it into my adulthood, and I created the same dysfunctional environment for my children. So when I came into recovery, and I mean when I really came into recovery, and I got connected to a power greater than myself, who I use in a generic word as God, it didn't just take the drugs and alcohol out of the equation. It took pain, misery, dysfunction, domestic violence, children that couldn't be looked after, that were emotionally abused and neglected. It healed me from traumas. It done things beyond my wildest dreams.
Wow.
It really did.
I'm seeing a person in front of me that's relaxed and, together, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing from that kind of a transformation. And sometimes when you see photos, well, this was me as well, just the other day as a kid, you get I don't know, it stirs up a lot of emotions. You see this innocent kid, and then you think of your life and how you got to where you are. It's quite emotional for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe I've got work to do on it.
I think, even up till about, life is a journey. I've come to believe, I've come to identify life as a journey. What is a destination for me? It's just about being peaceful, serenity. There's a word in the 12 steps, it's serenity, and it means to be untroubled.
Wow, I didn't realise that.
And when I first looked up the meaning of that word, I thought, wow, that sounds good. To be untroubled.
That sounds like a nice place to be, doesn't it?
That's an achievement, and because I come from a very, very traumatized background, I was a street raker child, so I was on the streets from a really early age. And
was that just because of family, how it worked out? Sorry if I'm prying, but
no. So I was the youngest of 4 children. I have 3 older brothers. My next brother to me was 9 years older than me. Then it was 10, and it was 16 years. So I was almost like an only child, really. I had all these governing bodies around me, and but my mum, God rest her soul, she was a really, really violent woman, and my dad sort of controlled his alcoholism by the opening and closing times of pubs. I don't know if you remember back in the day. They would close.
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah.
That's right. They would close in the afternoon for a couple of hours. And, my dad believed that anyone that drank indoors was an alcoholic and that kind of thing. He got up at 3 o'clock every morning, went to market, did his job.
So he was a grafter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I come from a really hard working class family. It was... if you didn't go to school, you just want to work. Yeah. It was as simple as that. It was like, fine, if you're not going to school, then you can go to work and earn a pound note. But so my dad was quite absent a lot of the time. Even when he was sort of there, he wasn't really there because he was wrapped up in his own world. He was quite irritated most of the time. The only time he really was happy was when he was in the pub. And don't get me wrong, my parents provided everything that we needed. There was always food on the table.
But back then that was what they considered
clothes,
love.
Yeah.
So you got food, you got clothes. What are you worried about?
Absolutely. And we lived in a beautiful house. We probably had the best house down the street, but behind the doors, it was really violent. I would watch my brothers just smash each other to pieces.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen my brothers knock each other's teeth out, give each other's black eyes, bleeding noses, and I've watched my father at one time or another like sort of knock each of my brothers just clean out. My mum was really, really violent. There was a trick that she used to play with me, even from a really small child. I can remember this from when I was about 5. And she would call it bouncing. So she would grab me by my hair and pull me up by my hair and then punch me in my head to put me back down again. And she would call that bouncing. And if I didn't sort of like, if I annoyed her, if I was mischievous, she would say to me, I'll bounce you up and down them stairs. And we lived in an end of terrace Victorian house, which had 4 flights of stairs on it.
And
so you can imagine
up the stairs, not just a stair.
Yeah, she would bounce me up and down the stairs.
That must be difficult. Jeez.
I mean, I've done a lot of work on myself, and it's not that I'm disassociated from it now. I mean, I have really, really forgiven her. I've embodied the forgiveness. You know, at the beginning, I had this willingness to forgive her, but I do know that I hung on to the behaviours, and they, even sort of like 10 years into my recovery, they were still affecting the way that I was reacting and responding to people, the type of relationships that I would get in. You know, the guys that I was most inclined to have a relationship with were the ones that weren't available, and there would always seem to be like an ex-woman in the background. And I now know that what I was doing, I was reenacting this triangular relationship with my father and my mother, where I felt that I was constantly trying to get my dad's attention, and, you know, I was constantly trying to be this child for my mother, and it never quite matched up. And I didn't even realise that I was reenacting all of this stuff. You know, it took me a lot of hard graft, a lot of mistakes as well, a lot of digging deep, a lot of prayer and meditation, a lot of being honest and sharing, a lot of step 4s and 5s that I've had to do and work through, and, you know, and constantly living in the moment. But what I would do is I would just, from a really early age, because you never knew which mum you was going to wake up to. You know, because she could
That
be
makes you
really
quite
kind.
anxious and fearful, I would have thought, as a kid.
Extremely. You know, it set me off to being quite controlling. And I now know that the reason that I was quite controlling was that I felt that if I could control the situation, then I wouldn't get hurt.
The outcome would be better. Yeah.
Of course, absolutely. But the truth of the matter is, you can't control anybody but yourself. And
But you were a victim in that case. You were just a kid, you know.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, but, you know, I think I can see it from my mum's point of view. You know, it must have been difficult living with a man like my dad.
And 3 sons.
Bringing up 3 boys that were an handful as well. And, you know, I come along really late in life. My mum was in evacuee during the war.
Oh,
you know, so, you know, even during thunderstorms and that, I could remember as a child, she would walk around the house and she would check all the windows, and I never really gave it much thought. And then, of course, during the Blitz, it would have been something that you would have done, because with the lightning, it would give the impression of bombs landing, you know, and all of this stuff is what I've learned in recovery.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? How you can see,
From
you can actually see other people's issues that they can't see, and you're like...
Absolutely, yeah. So I became a street raker from a really early age, because I learned that if I just stay out of her way, you know, I can't get into any trouble. So the moment the sun would literally rise, I'd be out.
Yeah.
I would be out. And as a result of that, I fell into a different kind of trap.
Is that moving in a bad group kind of thing? Or?
Well, when I was really young, there were some older kids, and they used to take some of us younger ones, and we were at different levels, sort of like, some of us more so than others. It was worse, but we were abused.
Oh, shit.
So, but yeah, but even that, you know, none of this stuff made me an addict. What it did was it gave me a really good reason to do it for longer.
The pity, self-pity, like,
absolutely.
Oh, what happened to me?
If you had a life like mine,
then you'd understand.
Then you would do what I do. You know, and I think the other thing with it as well is what it done was it gave me this, you know, I just didn't have any sense of what a healthy relationship was. No,
example for yourself,
Yeah, you know, I was terrified of my parents. There was no way that I was going to let my brothers know what was going on, because it was just too dangerous to tell anybody. It really was.
Must have been quite lonely for you, you know, to not be able to talk to someone in your family, and, you know, if you felt insecure about something. It sounds like a household where you don't show any fear or weakness. That would be not a good idea.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
To anybody, to each other, to people on the street. You know, you couldn't show any weakness whatsoever. And it's funny, because as I'm talking to you, it's like, even though all that was going on, my biggest trauma when I was growing up was the fact that I had bad skin because I got absolutely bullied and annihilated for it. So on top of everything else,
You're getting bullied when you're
yeah,
out as well.
yeah, I had this, you know, and yeah, so, you know, I can remember the first time I really can remember alcohol, like changing the way that I felt about just everything in my life. And it was raining, and we used to go to Holland Park's Adventure Playground in the holidays. And I was about 10 or 11 years of age, probably about 10. And my mum and dad were at work. My mum worked in a baker's in Kensington, and my brothers were all at work. My dad was at work, so I was on my own. I was a latchkey kid, and it was raining, so none of my friends were out. And we had a drinks cabinet, and I remember I got this half-pint glass, and I took a drop out of every single one of the clear liquids, because even then it was like the manipulation, absolutely. So if I took a little bit, but of course it's a concoction of like fire water. Do you know what I mean?
Kids, that's proper heavy.
And I remember drinking it, and it was like, oh my God, what am I doing? And I remember holding my nose and necking it. And I was playing Gino on a record player, 7-inch. And I just remember that when I drank it, I just remember that I didn't have any fear. Without the fear, there was no need for control. And I just remember dancing. And I remember, you know, I think I went into a blackout. And then afterwards I came out of it, I cleaned all up, got rid of all the evidence. And I just remember thinking to myself that every opportunity I get to do that, that's what I'm going to do.
So you found it was like a relief for you?
Yeah, it just, I didn't care what my skin looked like. I didn't care that I was keeping secrets from my family. I didn't care that I believed that my mum and dad didn't love me. You know, I didn't care that I had all these adults telling me what to do, and nobody actually ever asked me how I was and how was I doing. You know, I was academically gifted at school. I was in all of the sports teams. I always got picked the lead player at school, but no one was ever there. You know, all my friends, family would be there. And I always felt like there was something really wrong with me. Yeah.
That's awful for a child to feel that way. Really is. I can't imagine. Do you know what I mean? But you survived it. You know, you got through it. I can see you're a tough cookie in there. I'm not saying it was easy, but you pulled yourself through it.
It took a long time. It was, you know, not without its trauma. I mean, when I was about 10 or 11 then, and then shortly after that, we moved from Notting Hill to Fulham. And then whilst I was living in Fulham, I got in with a new crowd of people, and we all drank. We all smoked weed. It's the thing, you know, smoke a bit of weed, which when I drank and smoked weed just used to spin me out, but I still used to do it. And I used to creep out and just stay out all night. I used to climb out the window. Wow. And then I remember we moved from there, and we moved to Acton. And whilst we were living in Acton, like the crowd that I got in were quite bad. They were quite bad. And I got expelled from school about this time. So I wasn't going to school either. I'd been expelled from secondary school. My mum was absolutely she just went mental, you know, absolutely crazy. But their attitude was, right, you can get busy.
Come to work.
Go to work, do stuff for us and that. And then what happened was, you know, at the time, I kind of blamed, like for a long time in recovery, I look back and I was really resentful at her for doing it. But I was about 13 and a half and she literally threw me out. And I remember at the time, at first, it was like we had this massive argument. I was really drunk and we were screaming and shouting at each other. She sort of set about me, called her a few sort of unsavoury words, and she told me to leave. And I just looked at her and I said, good, I'm going to go. I remember I walked out of there. All I took was, my my tape box,
Yeah.
a load of tapes and some clothes, and I wasn't sure where I was going to go, and I ended up at, I think, I can't remember how it was, but they put me in it was in a really seedy dive B&B on a Talgarth Road as temporary accommodation. I remember I used to go down to the phone box every night, and I still used to phone the house, and I speak to my dad, and my dad would say to me, please come home, and I'd be like, I can't because of her. And that went on for about 6 months, and I literally, I was a master manipulator. I lied. I managed to convince like Social Security that I was older than what I was, so they paid my rent for me.
Oh, right. Oh, that's
and I was
good.
living in these hotels along the Shepherd's Bush Road. But with it came
At that younger age, it's
I know.
unbelievable. What a story.
I mean, I did go home briefly, and then I left again. So when I was about 14, I was back in these hotels and that, and it was really like, it got really. At first, it was all fun and games. It was like, yeah, I had a little job. My rent was getting paid for me. Everyone thought I was older than what I was. I had plenty of money. I was getting taxis everywhere. I was always out. And a couple of my friends wanted to live like me, so they got thrown out of their houses as well, but they very quickly went back. Then what happened was, it was like, I was stealing the money that was meant to be paying the rent for the hotel, so I'd have to keep moving every 2 or 3 months. And then eventually I ran out of hotels to stay in. And then I was living in squats.
Yeah.
And then that's when it started to get really like dark. And
Because the drug use had started by then.
I didn't start using drugs until I was in my 20s.
Oh, okay.
So I smoked weed and I drank.
Yeah.
Which, I would do things like, because I was always the bravest one, my friends would say to me, right, go on, you can drink them under the table. And we'd have this thing where we would like drink with older men to get them drunk.
And then
and then like, whatever, so that we could eat and stuff like that. But what I didn't realise was I was putting myself in so much danger all the time, was because where I've got this allergy to alcohol, that once I start drinking, I'm not going to stop. Whereas my friends, when they would do it, they would leave or they wouldn't drink. But I'd get myself into situations where I was with these guys that had really bad motives, and I'd be on my own with them, and I'd literally like drink until I was in a blackout, and then I wouldn't even know what was going on or what was happening. So every time I did it, it was sort of like Russian roulette, because it was like, who was going to go into a blackout first. So, I was like 14 years of age.
JD.
And,
Jeez.
so I got myself out of a few scrapes doing that. And, and I ended up living with my brother, and it was no different. They were just riddled with alcoholism as well. Everywhere I looked, my whole family, just alcoholism just ripped through it. And dysfunction and sickness. From going from a little kid, I remember like my earliest memories would be just sitting on the floor in our house with my hands over my ears, screaming, please stop it, please stop it. And I'd get violently attacked because I was making too much noise, and the police are going to come and it's going to be all your fault. And and I look back at that, and I just, the way that I've dealt with it is I imagine myself going back and putting my arms around that little girl and saying to her, do you know what? One day you're going to be all right. And I'm going to be able to look after you. Because I spent a long time, a lot of my life not being able to. And then I just went on to meet a guy that was really, really violent towards me. And, I exposed my kids to it. And I wasn't even able to protect them from it. So I drank and I used on that kind of stuff. And that's why I say, like, that when coming into recovery, it didn't just take away drugs and alcohol. It took away the pain of abuse, The relationship that I got in with the kid's dad was so violent that I lost my spleen. I had reconstructive surgery to my hands, my face, the back of my head. I died in front of my children on one occasion. And to say, like, that when I woke up in the morning, it was literally, I felt like I was fighting for my life. You know, I had social services all over me. I was trying to stop them from being taken off of me. You know, I was with a guy that was constantly in cocaine psychosis, which I didn't understand at the time. I just thought he was evil. You know, he was convinced that I was up to no good and he would set about me for it. You know, to go from that to what I am today is nothing short of a miracle, you know.
It's a miracle. I'm just looking at a miracle in front of me. Really am.
It is. It's
I've only
unbelievable.
heard a bit of your story, but I'm like, fucking hell, you're a survivor, man.
Yeah. God chose me.
You're here for a reason.
Yeah, definitely.
To spread the message, probably.
It is to It's sort of what the 12-step program of recovery and finding a power like a God of my understanding into my life. It's like every single obstacle that I've overcome is a demonstration of what he can do, because perfect people can't really demonstrate what God's capable of. But the more broken you are, the more he can go, look, that's what I can do. Yeah. You know, if you go to a car mechanic and he changes a light bulb in your car, any car mechanic can do that. Yeah. You know, but then if you go, listen, that car mechanic took my motor, put a brand new engine in it, and it runs like brand spanking new, you wouldn't even know. Now you'd go, now that's a car mechanic. Yeah. And it's like what God did with me through the 12-step program of recovery, because I was willing to be disciplined and follow direction. You know, he took a massive mess of my life and just turned it into a fantastic message. It's like my son, right? This is what instigated me into coming into recovery, right? When my boy was 14 years of age, he ran away from home. It was just after Christmas. And I'm sitting at the table and I'm sobbing and I'm crying and it's all poor me. Look at my life. And my daughter, who was 13 years of age, she come up to me and she went, Mum, I really think you need to stop drinking. Right? And I looked at her and I said, but I can't. I said, how can I stop drinking? I said, look at my life. I said, your dad keeps beating me up. Your brother's run away from home. And she went, no, Mum. She went, Matthew hasn't run away from you're not drinking because Matthew's run away from home. And domestic violence, that's not why you're drinking. She said, your life is like this because of your drinking. And Matthew's run away from home because of your drinking. She said, and if you don't stop, I'm going to. And I remember I looked and I thought, oh my God.
That's a lot of truth in this.
I know. I thought, whoa, this is a wake-up call. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I've got an optics that I've bought myself from the kids for me. It's got like all different, it's got vodka in it, it's got JD in it, it had Malibu in it. I had a bottle of wine, I was drinking cans, I was sniffing cocaine, because by this time I found cocaine, because I found that cocaine could control my drinking.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
Yeah, it was like, whoa, mate, do you know what I mean? So it's like, and she brought the house phone over and she said, ring AA. And I found the number in the yellow pages, and that boy, you know, I didn't get recovery straight away. For first 3.5 years. You know, and the great thing about this is the lady that gave me her time, she didn't know what she didn't know. And we never opened a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous together to go through a 12-step program. And unfortunately, for those 3.5 years, I relapsed. And in that time, my son did come back home, and then he left again, and he told people I was dead. You know, he'd completely given up any hope of having a mother that he could depend upon and rely upon. And what the miracle of that is today is that when I was 2 years in recovery, I bumped into my son. Wow. And I was able to make an amends to him. And that's beautiful. It took us another year before we even started to really sit in a room together. And then 2 years after that, I had to have him sectioned for his mental health because he'd gone into psychosis. I 12-stepped him while he was in the hospital, and he came to a meeting that I was secretary at. And he managed to stay clean and sober for 18 months, and he relapsed. And then what happened was I got a phone call one day and he said, Mum, please help me, I'm dying. And I was able to take my son for a 12-step program of recovery. And as a result of that, on my belly button birthday in November, it'll celebrate 9 years of sobriety.
Oh, that's fantastic.
You know, so that's what this program does. Yeah. That's unbelievable stuff.
It is unbelievable.
That's like, and you know,
the average person in the street wouldn't know anything about these miracles that are happening in
Yeah.
people's families. They're not aware of it, you know.
Well, how can you go from being a wretch that their own son can't be in the same house as you and literally has given up so much hope of ever having any kind of normal relationship with you, that the only way that they can deal with it is just to pretend that you don't exist on this planet anymore.
Yeah.
That's to go from that to asking you. And it was quite funny because I did a share for a convention, and he came round for a cup of tea, and he said to me, "Oh, my girlfriend heard you the other day." And I went, "Oh." I said, "Oh, was she at the thingy?" And I said to him, "Oh my gosh," I said, "I read out that poem that you sent me." And he said to me, "Oh wow," he said, "I can't remember it. Read it to me," because he's very good at writing. And I read it out to him, and it was a real powerful moment. And I remember we were both crying, and then we got up and we hugged each other. I remember he looked at me and he said to me, "Mum," he said, "thank you so much for saving my life." And I laughed and I said, "I'm really sorry for effing it up in the first place."
Oh my God. Well, that's mad.
And we just both laughed about it. And it is the thing, it's like, I know what I did.
Yeah.
You know, when I went through the steps, I met the addict. I met her face on. And I didn't like her very much. You know, she wasn't a particularly nice person. It's not someone that I would want to hang around with. And at that point, you know, it talks about in the 12 steps that I've got no choice, that I'm powerless. You know, I've got no choice in the power of drink and drugs. I've got an obsession of my mind, you know, and that's not obsessing. That's not, I want to drink, I don't want to drink, I want to drink, I don't want to drink. An obsession is just a thought that steps in for no reason whatsoever, and it will override every other idea or notion.
All saying sensible thinking is gone, I guess.
You know, because I can deal with the obsessing because I know it's there. I can think, "Oh, yeah, I ain't going to play with you today." Do you know what I mean? Even though it's painful, I know it's there, but it's that insane, subtle obsession that does me, you know. And then when I start, I can't stop. So that tells me I've got no choice.
Yeah.
But in our book, in step 2, it tells me God either is or he isn't. What was our choice to be? So then I'm given a choice. And I take the book literally, and I looked at it and I thought, you know what? This guy that sat in front of me, he's clearly been where I've been, because he didn't tell me what was wrong with me. He identified with what was wrong with him.
Yeah.
And I looked at this guy, I thought, I get that. I understand that thinking. This explains so much for what I couldn't. You know, that when I start, I can't stop. I've got an illness. I've got an allergy, an allergic reaction, and an abnormal reaction to chemicals. I just thought I was bad.
Yeah.
I just thought, you know, that I wasn't capable of being a good mother, that I was a liar and a cheat. I thought that it was ingrained in me.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that I had this illness and that I had no choice, because once I started, I couldn't stop, you know. But then it tells me in step 2 that we're going to give you a choice.
Yeah.
And what do you want to do about it?
Are you ready to take action?
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I hit the floor running with it. You know, what a wonderful way to live.
So after that 3 years of kind of being in the program and kind of not fully committing, that must have been quite difficult. That must have been quite hard going.
God, you know.
Because you had a taste of sobriety, I guess.
Look, I didn't really get a taste of sobriety because what the 12 steps do is it treats my sobriety.
Yeah.
It don't treat my drinking.
No.
Right? It treats me when I'm not drinking, because the drinking is the solution and the 12 steps is a solution, but they can't be used together. You can't mix them. It's either one or the other. You know, and in those 3.5 years, it was the most painful time of my life.
I can imagine.
It was because my problems don't start when I'm drinking. Your problem starts when I'm drinking.
Yeah.
My problem starts when I stop.
Yeah, gotcha.
You know, because that's when the head gets really loud. That's when I'm so aware of my body and how it moves and what I'm wearing, how I speak, how I sound. You know, my head constantly will chatter to me, telling me what everybody else is thinking about me.
Or usually negative, not positive.
Absolutely. What I should have done and what I shouldn't have done.
And what you fucked up.
Absolutely. Yeah, it never
And
says
over
to
and
me.
over again,
Yeah.
you fucked that up, you fucked that up, you fucked it up again.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
and
You know,
yeah.
I heard a guy share,
Yeah.
and he said, "Have you heard the alcoholic thing tune?" And it goes, me, because that's it.
good,
It's
yeah.
just all about me.
Yeah.
How do I look? Am I talking? What do they think of
What
me?
do they think of me?
Do they like me?
Yeah.
You know, am I going to be all right? Am I going to get any money? This is my idea. Am I going to get all of the the praise
it's horrible.
for it?
It's like a vacuum of self-centeredness, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm walking funny.
Yeah.
You know, just constantly.
Oh, I don't like those. Why is she wearing those shoes? She looks like
Yeah.
an idiot.
Yeah.
So really critical, isn't it? That brain, that thinking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, he's too slow. He goes too fast. She talks too loud. She talks too quiet.
Yeah.
You know, nothing's ever good enough. Maladjusted. You know, I lack balance and harmony. And that's what. So those 3.5 years, I was just doing lots of meetings, and then I would drink and use again. You know, I had this idea that it's okay. I can take ecstasy at the weekends because I never had a problem with ecstasy. You know, took an ecstasy on a Friday night. Tuesday, I'm drinking JD and Coke. You know, the following Tuesday because I ain't stopped.
No. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, how did that happen?
So how did you get to that point after the 3 or 3.5 years when you just thought, were you fully broken? Because I hear people share that a lot. Or, yeah. What made you actually decide, look, I can't have a foot in both camps?
Well, I didn't know because I was going to meetings where they didn't talk about the big book. The obsession of the mind wasn't talked about. You know, it wasn't really spoke about as an illness. Like people would say I'm sick, but I never understood entirely what I was really dealing with. I didn't fully understand what it meant to be an alcoholic or an addict. I didn't understand that. You know, the meetings I was sitting in, they didn't talk about drugs, so I was still doing drugs because I thought it's okay to do drugs. I'm an alcoholic.
It's not alcohol.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what happened was there was a series of events which led up to it. One of my relapses, I found myself smoking crack. I was getting up to no good with cannabis as well, and I'd got in with a group of guys that were really dishonest, you know, dishonest. And they ended up going to prison. Unfortunately, I didn't. And I remember I was just so broken and busted. And I remember thinking I'm going to have to go back to meetings. And I went back to meetings and I was begging like someone to help me. And nothing changed. I had the same sponsor. And then eventually what happened was the guy that I'd been with for about 15 years, I think, at this stage, you know, we'd been moved because of domestic violence and he wasn't allowed near myself or the children. And then what happened is at the Christmas, there was a serious assault. And I went and stayed with my cousin.
Against you? Or?
Against me, yeah. And I went and stayed with my cousin over the New Year. And I came back and I'd run out of everything. I had no money. I didn't have any drink. There was nothing to use to take away the absolute pain. And he sent me a message and I said to him, what you doing? Come round. Because I knew he'd have drink on him. Anyway, he came round and he ended up assaulting me again, which led to him being remanded at the time for raping me. So social services were then involved and I'd sort of scraped by. I don't know how they hadn't really realised the extent of my alcohol and drug use. And I remember thinking, she was going on and on and on, like, why did you have him at the house? It goes against everything that you agreed. And I remember looking at her and I went, well, I'm an alcoholic. And she went, oh. And she went off. And I thought, well, that was easy. But then she come back the next day and she said to me, we've had an emergency meeting and your children are back on the at-risk register.
Oh, shit.
And I was absolutely livid at her. I was so angry with her. And I told her to get out of my house. And she was like, listen, I don't think you understand. If you have one drink, we're going to take the kids off you. So she left. So for 3 months...
Were you having to have tests and stuff?
No, for 3 months I managed to not drink they would turn up whenever they wanted,
To
basically.
test you kind of thing.
Well, just
Or
to
just check
turn
on
up,
you.
just to see the kids.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't have to ever need
Okay.
tests or nothing. I just told them that I was an alcoholic. I didn't say anything about drugs. And what happened was I went to the doctors. They gave me a prescription, a repeat prescription of Valium. So I've now become addicted to Valium. And this was when I was a kid. I found my mum's Valium. And when I got kicked out of school, at the time I was drinking Tenant Super and taking Valium. And I used to go into these major blackouts, like I would just come to in places. And what sort of happened was my whole life had gone this massive full circle. So, there I was at 13 years of age, drinking these strong lagers and taking Valium. So here I am now at 41 years of age. I'm at home on my own. I've ended up drinking K-Cider with the Valium and with diazepam, and I went into a 6-week blackout, basically. The only thing that I could remember was I would come to in my front room. I wouldn't know if it was nighttime or daytime. If the sun was shining, I wouldn't know if it was early in the morning or late in the afternoon. I had a clock that told the wrong time, and I wouldn't let anybody put the time right on it, so I didn't even know what the time was. And I remember I would just get up and I would jog on the spot, and I'd think, have I got to get the kids? Where are the kids? Where are the kids? So if the kids weren't in the house, and I knew that I'd have to go to the school, so I'd go to the school and get them. And I remember this one day, I come to, and I was jogging on the spot, and my daughter walked in the room, and she was 16 now. This was the 13-year-old girl that told me to phone AA. And she looked at me and she went, "What are you doing?" And I had my hands on my head because I was trying to think, did I have the children? And I looked at her and I said, "Where are the kids?" Because my two youngest were like 9 and 10 at this stage. And she looked at me and she said, "Are you honestly telling me that you can't remember getting them from school?" And I thought, it's okay, I've got them.
Yeah.
I thought, it's all right, I've got the kids. And then my next thought was, I need a drink. And as I went to go past her, I looked at her face, and there was just this look of like, I can't even explain it. It was like, it wasn't hatred or disgust. It was just like she was looking at a complete stranger, an intruder that was in her home.
Didn't recognise her mum.
Yeah. And I remember looking at her, and something inside of me just died. And I remember I went and got this drink, and I went and sat in the bedroom, and I locked the door, and all of a sudden there was a knock at the door. And I just said, "Who is it?" And it was my youngest. And she said to me, I forgot up to this point, I'd been crying. Then this was because that was the Friday, and I cried for 2 days. I left a message on the detective constable inspector's voicemail, who was in charge of the rape case, that I drank again. He phoned me back and said to me, "But aren't you doing meetings?" I said, "They don't work." I left a voice note on social services, grassing myself up. I was absolutely broken. And so on the Sunday, I was in my bedroom and I was drinking, and I had a couple of Valium left, and there was a knock at my door, and it was my little girl, and she said to me, "It's me, Evie, mummy." And she said, "Are you okay?" And I remember the conversation like it was yesterday. I said, "I will be if you leave me alone." And she said to me, "But I just want to know that you're okay because I love you." And I remember I just swore at her. I said to her, "Just F off and leave me alone. I will be fine if you leave me alone." And she said to me, "I'll be downstairs if you need me." And I remember thinking to myself, do you know what? They're actually better off without you. And in that moment, it was like I'd stepped out of myself. Because I'd been blaming their dad for everything, blaming my mum, blaming my dad. Like, my mum was now passed away, my dad's passed away, he's in prison, I'm here on my own. It was like there was no one left to blame. And I remember it was like, as I said it to myself, it was like I'd stepped out of my body and I was looking at me. And I just remember something in me broke, and I dropped to my knees and I went, "God, please put an end to this." And I got up, nothing happened. And I got on my bed and I'd managed to blag this little phone, and I'd got it on a contract. I'd never had a phone on a contract before. And it was a little Burberry Curve, BlackBerry Curve.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember I went on it, my daughter downloaded Facebook on it, and I went on to Facebook and I looked, and there was this fella's face. And I thought, I don't remember adding him. And he looked really happy.
Yeah.
And I knew him in my teens, and I used to really rinse him and rip the life out of him. And I thought, well, what's he got to look so happy about? So I started flicking through his photos. Ralph. And I thought, do you know what? I'll show you.
Yeah.
How dare you be happy? I started going through his photos, and he got happier and happier, and he had loads and loads of friends. And I thought, oh my God. And I just remembered, do you know what? Right, you're having it, mate.
Yeah.
I'm going to destroy you. And then all of a sudden I stopped, and there was a circle of chairs. And there was no one in them. And someone had put in the feed, oh my God, Ralph, what, you upset everybody. It's a Cool Skips Anonymous meeting. And I remember inboxing him, and I said to him, are you in the meetings? And he inboxed me back, give me his number. I called him, he didn't answer. I remember throwing my phone because I thought he was taking a mickey out of me. And then he rang me straight back.
Wow.
And I hadn't seen him for 19 years.
Jeez.
And he said to me, are you okay? It was all he said to me, and I just burst into tears. I said, no. He ended up 12-stepping me. That was on May the 15th, 2011. He said to me, you need to get to a meeting, you need to get a big book, and you need to get a sponsor. And no one had ever spoken to me like that before. He was 17 years clean and sober, prolific crack addict, like on the streets in London, really bad, like, because we all grew up in Notting Hill. I mean, we all thought we were gangsters. And, you know, they were quite bad. His brother was in recovery as well. And I remember I walked up the shop that night, I bought my last drink to see me through the night. I got up the next day, I phoned him like he asked me to, and I still had my where to find. I found a meeting, I walked to it. God, like my hair just used to absorb every bit of moisture from the environment. It just used to blow out. I itched for 10 months. I had auditory hallucinations. I had visual hallucinations. God. I mean, I was in a really bad way, but I just kept marching to meetings, you know. I heard somebody say do 90 meetings in 90 days. I don't know, something just changed. I had this desperation.
Yeah.
You know, probably. I started talking to my brother again as well. This was my middle brother. Yeah, my middle brother, not the youngest out of the boys, the middle guy, and my brother Paul. And I said to him, I'm going back to meetings. He was like, thank God for that. He said, thank God for that. And then he said, you've got to get a sponsor and you've got to go through the big book. Because he didn't know about it when I was in the recovery 12-step fellowship before. He found out by accident when I was up the hospital visiting my dad, because my dad had passed away in the last sort of like bit of madness that I had. And he'd actually thrown me out of my father's funeral because I was behaving so badly. So when I phoned him and said to him, look, I'm going to go back to meetings, he said, thank God. He said, because you're ill. He said, you're really ill. You know, what he didn't tell me was by this time, I say my father had just died. When I came back into the rooms, my brother was 2 years sober.
Oh, wow.
Because the last drink that he had was at my dad's funeral.
Really?
Yeah, and then he was in recovery as well.
Jeez.
So it was like 2 years from then. And so I've got my brother saying to me, you need to get a sponsor, you need to go through the book. I've got this guy, Ralph, saying you need to get a sponsor and go through the book. And I'm talking to these two every day. And I heard someone say do 90 and 90. I did 153 meetings on foot. I did two meetings on foot. I walked to them on foot.
That's
and
proper.
I had one pair of shoes, pair of All-Stars that didn't fit me properly. My feet are still damaged today from it. And I literally wore a hole in the sole of the one on the right foot. And I used to sit in meetings and I used to lift my foot up on the table when I was doing a chair. And I used to go, I wore a hole in the sole of my fixing the hole in my soul.
That's how much I want it.
And
with the hole in my soul. Sorry.
Yeah.
I need to
someone like, and everyone that I encountered, I say to them, can you sponsor me? I ended up with about 6 sponsors. And no one was opening the book with me.
Really?
But this time I knew, like, whereas before I stuck with that one woman for 3.5 years. When I come back in, I asked her to sponsor me again because she didn't open a book. I just kept asking more people. And eventually it come to the point where I wanted to drink. I think I was about 3 weeks in, and I was in a meeting and I basically told him, I said, listen, I know how to stop. I said, someone's got to show me how to stay stopped.
Yeah.
I said, because if I pick up when I'm losing my kids,
Yeah.
I said, and I can't have that, excuse me. And then what happened was, a guy approached me after the meeting, and I'll never forget it. I mean, God knows what I look like. I just looked like this crazy lady. And he said to me, would you like a lift?
Yeah.
Irish fella.
Hmm.
And I remember I looked him up and down and I thought, have a word. Yeah. Like, didn't have a designer label on. I thought, I went to him, and why was I want a lift?
Yeah.
And he said, because you look really tired.
Hmm.
And I remember my shoulders just dropped and the fight just went out of me. And I said to him, I'd really like a lift. You know, and I got in a car with him and we had a conversation. And I remember looking at him and he just had something about him.
Yeah.
You know, the book says that he was inexplicably different.
Yeah.
You know, he was a light. And I said to him, I just want what you've got. He said, all I've got is a 12-step program of recovery. And I remember he took a deep breath and then he looked at me again. He went, would you like me to temporary sponsor you? And no one had ever offered me that.
Really? Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, yeah. And then that was it. He said to me, phone him at 8 o'clock in the morning. That was on a Saturday. I rang him Sunday morning at bang on 8 o'clock. He picked me up at the top of the road. Because what I'd started doing was I had a panic room.
Yeah.
And I was literally leaving my 2 kids at home with a phone because I couldn't drag them everywhere with me.
Yeah.
Going, like, in the daytime, they would be at school. Of an evening, you know, it was just too late to walk them. I was completely crazy. I didn't have an Oyster card. You know, I thought people were watching me. So that's why I used to walk everywhere. You know, I couldn't drag them about with me. So I had to take the chance and leave them at home alone.
You had to do what you had to do.
You know,
Yeah.
because the point of the matter was they didn't have a mother when I was using. I used to go into blackouts. I'd leave them in the middle of the night with a dog babysitting them, and I'd go to school and get vodka. You know, and I made this decision, and they knew, and they was like, Mummy, you got to go and do what you got to do, because I'd always only be gone for like 2 hours and then I'd be back again.
Yeah. And they
I
probably
remember-
like their mum, the new mum that was coming out.
I used to come back, you know, my little Evie would have drawn me pictures of us as a happy family. She'd write me little poems and things like that. One of them that I've got, I wrote my first ever gratitude list on it. And I remember he picked me up at the top of the road at 9 o'clock, and by 9:30 we were sitting in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and he taught me about the disease of alcoholism. And you know what? I hit the floor running with it. It was 14 years ago. I've never drank and used again since, and there has never been a time when I am not in the book with somebody trying to help someone to go through the steps. You know, I got removed from school at 13 years of age by the police. Because I refused to leave because they expelled me from school, and then I said to them, I'm not leaving. And that's called a police to get me removed from school. You know, 18 months ago, I graduated with a degree in science.
Wow.
In psychology from Brunel University.
Flipping hell.
Because I went back into college. I did access to higher education. Health and Social Care Level 3. I got a distinction merit profile. I won an award. I got accepted into 5 universities. You know, I
Jaynie,
chose Brunel.
You're amazing.
Yeah, well, I'm not. The programme is. I couldn't have done any of it without the programme. Throughout it all, I still managed to be a member of 2 fellowships. I had commitments in both of them and was sponsoring in both fellowships at the time. I was working best part of full-time hours in a pub up the road from me.
As well.
I used to close. I used to do all the closes and that. And I'd had a baby in recovery. He was 2 when I started my education. I mean, he's never seen me drink or use. And basically he went to private nursery and, you know, and the kids and everything. I still had the other 2 at home. My son had come back and then, you know, he'd got into recovery and then he'd moved out again.
Yeah.
You know, so like
what
recovery.
A journey, man. And recovery's just been the making of you. But I mean, it sounds like you're a really bright kid. Just the home life didn't foster the right environment for you to excel. But now you've in this good place. You're smashing the studying. I mean, you've got a good brain on you. Flipping hell. Yeah,
I want to set up my own business, like helping people.
Yeah,
that's what I want to do.
I think you should.
You know,
you with your experience, you can speak from experience, not from a textbook. You know, you've lived that.
Well, the beautiful thing is as well, I mean, it's all swings and roundabouts and everything comes round to full circles and that. You know, there's a lot of stuff that's happened as well. Like, whilst I've been in recovery, you know, When I was working one night, a young man, 21 years of age, he got his throat cut and he died.
So,
Like, and I was running a bar that night, it was horrific. What his family went through and everything. I'm not making it about me or anything else,
Yeah.
but, a lot of people use these things to drink on and everything else. But for me, again, it's an opportunity to say, if you follow this program, if you're really done with it, like, you can demonstrate the power of what God can do through you, whatever your identification of God may be, for identification purposes. My God isn't a God that sits in the clouds or,
what is it to you?
It's everything. God is love.
Yeah. Love. I love it. I like that
God
one.
is love. It's like, for me, God is a place inside of me that, and when I'm open, when I'm not blocked off, you see, because in a doctor's opinion, in a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and Dr. Silkwood was a phenomenal guy. The reason I love the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, in the first 37 years, it sold 15,848,500 copies. That's before the internet or anything.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the book actually in 1951 was awarded the Lasker Award, which is one of the second most prestigious award that can be awarded in the medical fraternity, and it was given to the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous for its contribution to that age-old illness, alcoholism. And Dr. Silkworth's ideas and notions around alcoholism and the symptoms and the manifestations of them symptoms was a basis for the medical model for alcoholism and addiction, because the World Health Organization, I believe it was in 1953, publicly recognised alcoholism and addiction as a mental disorder, and the doctor's ideas were used.
Were they? Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh.
He wrote some fantastic papers on alcoholism and addiction, and in it he talks about that an alcoholic needs to have some form of moral psychology. Well, moral psychology means to know right from wrong.
Yes.
Well, I know right from wrong because I was taught from a really early age what you don't talk about, so I knew that was wrong. So anything opposite that had to be right. I knew what was right and wrong. What I need is a spiritual experience, which is a profound personality change, which means that I've then got the power to do right instead of wrong. And what happened is I need to find God, and where I found God was inside myself, because it says, search diligently within inside yourself, it is only there that he may be found. And what I discovered really early on was that I didn't have to let God in, I had to let him out.
Wow, that's profound.
So
I haven't heard that before.
I then demonstrate what God can do through me, I literally am demonstrating what he can do through me, because he was there all the time.
Yeah.
That's why I was so uncomfortable. And I believe that that is where the power of connection comes, that when we become unblocked and we're connected with each other, with the universe, through prayer and meditation, I often walk through nature and I take my shoes off. I'm always grounding myself, animals and trees and nature. I love running in the woods. I love swimming. They're all forms of meditation. I heard somewhere that meditation is to use the mind.
Yeah.
And for me, to use the mind is to talk, is to communicate with my mind. And the more I practice this exercise, this ritual, this discipline, whichever word you want to use for it, all means the same thing. The more connected I am to my heart, there's another thing that it says that the biggest journey that you'll ever make is from your head to your heart.
Wow.
And it's the longest journey you'll ever make, and it's only 16 inches.
How would you explain that to the layman? What does it mean to you?
What it means is, to me, is that I've got an illness that centres in my mind.
Yeah.
So if I imagine my mind, okay, it's like it's in two parts. So I've got this part that my illness dominates, and then I have this part that is connected to love. It's connected to God, God is where he speaks from. It's from this part. Now, when I feed my illness through negative emotions, resentments, fears, self-pity, morbid reflection, gains a little bit of momentum. Okay? So what happens is is like my sound reasoning, my God is trying to speak to me, but he's getting all the power. And then eventually what happens is the insane idea wins out.
Yeah.
And my sound reasoning fails to hold me in check. Okay, so if I'm connected to my heart, this is the one that gets the power because I'm not fighting. So I have to surrender. I have to concede to my innermost self. Now, when I was a child, I used to play myself at chess.
Oh.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
I know. I never won. I never lost either, though. That was the thing. Do you know what I mean? And my brothers I used to say to my brothers, because I could play chess.
Yeah.
Like my family, I come from quite an intelligent family, and anyway, my brothers didn't like to play me because I was.
Were you good?
It wasn't that I was good. It was just that they were really good, and I wasn't really any competition.
Oh, I see.
And
Okay,
because I was quite a over emotional child, it was like it wasn't any fun to beat me, and they were quite like they would wind me up. So I actually think that they were barred from playing me, to be fair, because they were quite wicked. So I would literally get the chess piece in my hand, and I would say like, pick a hand, because there'd be white in there and black in there, you know. And they'd go, "I'll go away, will ya?" And my mum would go, "Just pick one.
Yeah.
At least she's quiet."
Yeah.
You know, so I'd set the board up, and it'd be pretty much on a table this size, and the board would be in the middle, and white would be on this side, and black would be on that side, and I would play the moves.
Yeah.
And then eventually I would get to a point where I'd be stumped.
Yeah.
Because now I've got to attack myself.
Oh, right.
But I know all the moves that are going to be made on the board.
Yeah.
So I know what black's doing, and I know what white's doing. So I'm just counteracting everything all of the time, you see? And I couldn't win. And it's exactly the same with my illness. It centres in my mind. It knows all the moves I'm going to make. It knows what I like, what I don't like. It knows what makes me happy. It knows what distracts me, you know? And the thing is with it as well, it doesn't have to sleep. It doesn't have to eat. It doesn't have to quench its thirst. It can just wait constantly, feeding off of all my negative emotions.
Just waiting for you.
Dripping, you know, you're no good. Nobody likes you. Your mum's going to start on you soon. You know, you ain't going to get good grades at school today.
You're going to get found out at work that you're not good enough.
That's right.
Imposter syndrome.
Constantly. You know, just drip feeding me this negative stuff till in the end, all of a sudden it'll go, you know, it'll make you feel better, don't you? Just have a little one.
Yeah,
no one to know. No one to know. You'll get away with it. You ain't had one, whatever.
You've been good for 14 years.
And anyway, it's their fault. They made you like it. Go and have one. We listen to them for, you know, and that's what it would do to me. So what I need is I need to be able to let this power in to play the moves for me. But how do I do that? By conceding. And the way that I would end the game is, and I never even made this connection until I was about 10 years in.
Yeah.
And I used to get on my knees and level with the table, and I would knock the two kings down, but they would have to fall at exactly the same time.
Wow.
So I would concede the game, but these kings would have to hit the board.
So you'd have to be a fair
at exactly, absolutely. And I might have to knock them down 20, 30 times. It wouldn't matter.
And
that's exactly the same with my illness. When I concede to my innermost self, when I stop fighting, then my illness has to back down. It's got no one to fight with. And that is when I can start my journey from my head to my heart.
Wow.
Because when my heart does the thinking for me, when my heart makes my decisions, then God's running the show. When it's my head, it's my illness. That's why I have to have someone that I'm accountable to. I've got close mouth friends from all different kinds of backgrounds, you know. In the early days, it was just one person, you know, but my fellowship around me has grown. You know, I know people that are, you know, the guy that is my spiritual guide is half the clean time that I am. You know, it's not his time that I want.
Yeah.
It's his attitude.
And the quality of his recovery, isn't it?
Oh, my gosh, you know, this is a person that is a seeker. They're so connected to God. You know, maybe not 100% of the time, but we're human at the end of the day.
We're not perfect.
Absolutely.
It's progress, not perfection.
Absolutely. Yeah, but the reason that it's progress and not perfection, I believe, is because you cannot perfect the realm of the spirit. That's what we're aiming for. We're progressing towards perfection because I'm progressing towards God's grace, which is perfection.
Wow.
but I can't perfect it. Only God's perfect, you know, but I can aim for that. That is my ideal, you know, to be in constant love, in constant peace, in constant giving, you know.
That's amazing.
I heard a guy share, and he said, and I love this, just over this year, the last year of my recovery, I believe, has been the most freeing of my recovery, the most freeing.
Yeah.
And he said that the sun is for warmth, food is for hunger, water is for thirst, and God is forgiving. You know,
Forgiving,
yeah,
forgiving.
yeah.
Love that.
And the way that I've demonstrated forgiveness is and not everybody sort of kind of agrees with this kind of stuff, but you know, my mum and my dad, I was able to make a graveside amends to my parents, you know, for what I basically, you know, like my part in everything that went on. And yeah, and I think that, you know, even when I did it at the time, it was like I made the amends, but I think I've grown into it over time. At the beginning, it was just willing to forgive when the opportunity, because willingness means that when I'm presented with the opportunity, I grab it with energy and vigour without hesitation. And I believe that's what every opportunity of growth is. It's an opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
You know, every challenge, every obstacle, that's where I show my willingness, you know. Am I going to balk at it, or am I going to grab it and use it as an opportunity to demonstrate what God can do in the programme and to grow from it? And so I made an amends to my parents. I make a donation to a paedophile charity. And, you know, when I went out asking people for forgiveness, when I was doing my step 9, which is made amends to people that we've harmed and that, you know, and became willing to make amends. Yeah. And I went out and I gave people an opportunity to say how I affected them. One person said to me, you know, you was the cause of a fire that happened, you know, from some actions that went on, you know, stuff that happened. There was a fire, and you know, and I said to him, yeah, I'm really sorry about that. And they said, well, you know, my girlfriend went in there and she was pregnant, and a week later she lost a baby.
Shit.
And he said, you know, we don't know if it was definitely because of the fire, but it might have been, and we'll never know. And I remember I walked away from there. I thought, oh my God, you know, and I realised that I was still holding on to these resentments with my ex, you know, for the assaults, and like still like, you know, angry because of like my stolen life.
Yeah.
What about like me? You know, what about what I've got to live with for the rest of my life? You know, I've got scars on my body, and you know, and I was still kind of angry with my mum, but if you'd have got me help, like, because my dad knew about Alcoholics Anonymous, which I found out after I come in. You know, all these little petty things that I held on to, and it was like, you know, and in that moment, I remember I dropped to my knees and I was like, I'm not God. I'm not God. So I remade the graveside amends, and this time I really meant it. You know, the guy that had been arrested for raping me and beating me systematically in some instances, you know, I've tried to 12-step him a few times, you know, and then I decided to make this donation to a paedophile charity. I thought, right, I'm saying that I've got a mental illness. As a result of my mental illness, you know, my son ran away from home at 14 years of age, and I'm not going to diverse into, you know, stuff around his background and that. But some pretty, like, horrific stuff went on that even though my son's only 9 years clean and sober, at the moment he's not speaking to me because I'm a trigger for trauma, you know. he's a phenomenal young man. He helps a lot of people. He's got a really good job, and he's doing a counselling course in the background. But the truth of the matter is, I probably am a trigger. You know, what I expose them children to, it's like, and then I look at someone else that's got a mental illness and I go, oh no, but yours is worse than mine. Because you're deliberately hurting children. But how do I know that for sure? I didn't deliberately set about hurting my children.
No.
I didn't know what I didn't know.
You weren't well. You were sick.
And I had to realise that maybe it was the same for these people. So maybe they're entitled to help too if they ask for it. And if I could help provide that, and in that as well, what if there's a little girl that is saved from what I went through? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's God.
That is wonderful, isn't it?
That's not me, because when I come in, I had a hit list. These people were going to die, you know? But because of the steps and because of just following them, and even when I didn't know if they were going to work, how they were going to work, and would they work for me, I just followed the instructions anyway. They took my hit list and turned it into an amends list.
Wow.
And I was able to forgive people for stuff that I thought that I wanted them to die for. You know, the freedom that I get from that is unreal.
It's very freeing, isn't it? You're not carrying that burden with you.
It affects the way that I treat everybody that I come into contact with. It doesn't just free me, it frees up my children. And like I said, I think the last year has been one of my most massive in terms of spiritual liberation. Spiritual liberation, because, you know, I was so book grounded, like I was, you know, because I'd been hurt by people, and like I say, I still had this fear around people. They're going to hurt me. People do hurt you, because people just don't know what they don't know. You know, sometimes people hurt you completely by accident. They don't have that intention.
No, they don't know what your triggers are.
But they just don't know. They just don't know. Exactly that. You know, and by spiritually liberated, it frees you from wanting to control people, great expectations.
Expectations are the thief of joy, aren't they?
You know what expectations are, don't you?
Go on.
Resentments under construction.
I like that. Yeah, that's very good.
That's what they are. Yeah.
That's true, isn't it?
That's what they are. That's what they absolutely are.
You've got so much wisdom and knowledge and understanding about this stuff. It's amazing.
I think after 14 years, I'm entitled to have, I should know something.
Well, I've spoke to people, I've had people on the show and people I know who've got 20, 25 years and they're not as lit up as you are, you know. So it's not how much time you have. It's how real you live it.
Every morning,
I'm guessing.
You know, upon awakening, before I even lift my head off the pillow, it's like, I'm here. What would you have me be?
Yeah.
You know, and I don't get it perfect. You know, the guy, my spiritual guide that I'm accountable to, you know, I have to share stuff. I have to go, do you know what, right? This person is absolutely doing my nutting.
Yeah.
But on the whole, I'm pretty well together.
Yeah.
Because I set my intention for the day. I love my quiet time. You know, I could never sit still. And I hated being on my own. And, you know, me, it would be I'd have the phone in one hand, I'd have the TV on, I'd have the music on, I'd have the radio on in the kitchen, the kids would be jumping around like lunatics, and I would be rucking with a neighbour across the road all at the same time. Do you
Just
know what I mean?
crazy drama. Yeah.
And now, I can't remember the last time I watched a TV programme. I love, you know, at the end of the day, after everything's done and dusted, I love just putting my PJs on.
Yeah.
And I probably spend less time in my PJs than any other time in my life because I'm so busy. And I love that time when I just either, you know, first thing in the morning, I sit there and I think, right, what am I going to do? And I just have this little to and fro in my head to keep that connection going, you know. I travel to my heart space. I stay there for a bit, ask some questions, see if anything comes up. I've got a little notepad where I write things down and I go about my day, you know. if I get fearful or frightened. You know, I'm really fortunate where I work. The two people that I work with, neither of them drink, smoke, take drugs. You know, I work for two brothers. One's 14 years, the other one's 17
Oh, wow, they're
years.
both sober.
Yeah, like, you know, I'm a property manager for them, and some of the guys, we've 12-stepped them into recovery,
Oh,
live in the
wow.
properties, and they're 12-stepping other people and sponsoring people. And, you know, it's tough. It's tough working with people, you know, and I'm on about, like, you're dealing with people that aren't sort of, when you're dealing with tenants, they're not turning up at appointments. Like, you're getting to see them in their world.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And, yeah, it's like sometimes it's just a case of put the kettle on and being that person that wasn't there.
What do you mean?
For me.
Do you see the situations they're in, do you mean? Or
Everybody gets in a situation, don't they? Everybody encounters life.
Hmm.
Everybody has certain trials and low spots. Everybody, we all encounter them.
Sober or not.
Yeah, everybody does. Everybody. You know, the point of the matter is, it's just that who are you going to be when you come across somebody who's having one of these moments? You know, you can either make it better or you can make it worse.
And make it your
What
own.
is your choice to be? You know, God either is or he isn't. And I'm not saying that I get it perfect, but sometimes, you know, people say and do things, I've done it.
Yeah.
And I don't really mean anything about it. You know, for instance, the other day, I pulled up somewhere and another lady that I know was talking to a woman, and she recently lost her father.
Oh.
And I didn't know that. You know, and it was like I only knew because this other lady's told me. And what I mean is, I could have encountered her in any situation.
Yeah, you don't know what people are going through.
Absolutely. We never know what people are going through.
So with your life back then and your life now, and if there's somebody out there watching where you were 14 years ago in the shit, thinking, oh, fucking, what can I do? What message would you give to yourself or someone like you 14 years ago? They're watching this. Some hope.
I'd say to them, you know, reach out.
Yeah.
You know, 12-step fellowships. I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention
So you
them.
can mention whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, Cocaine Anonymous. Reach out. You know, they've got helplines all over the UK, all over the world. Reach out to somebody. Just get honest with someone.
Yeah.
You know, tell them how you're feeling. There's other fellowships as well. There's, at the last count, I think there's 273 different fellowships.
Yeah.
You know, I came in through Alcoholics Anonymous. And the crazy thing is, the lady that sponsored me for those 3 first years, I'm just about to start a book study and she's going to be on it.
Oh, wow.
I know. So that's crazy as well. It just shows you're doing the right thing. But, you know, there's lots of help out there today. There's lots of understanding. You have to put some
action in to get it, right?
But
no one's
you've got
to bring it to you.
I think what it is, especially with women that have got children, there's this massive fear that you're going to lose your kids, that they're going to get taken off you. If people find out what you're doing, what you like, you know, the truth of the matter is, us women that are all in recovery, we've all been there. It's anonymous. No one's going to go grassing you up for nothing. Don't get me wrong, if we thought children were in danger, anyone, if we thought you was in danger, a grown-up, we would, you know, get the appropriate help for you. But you know, they're anonymous meetings. We're not there to grass anyone up for anything. We're there to offer help.
And support, I guess.
Absolutely, you know, so that you can find another way to live. You know, because like I said, my problems don't start when I'm drinking, they start when I stop. And, you know, the way that children benefit from this is unbelievable. You know, if you can do it before you've got kids, even better. You ain't got to wait till you've got children to get clean and sober. You know, and it doesn't matter how old you are. Even if you're a young person, there's loads of young people in the meetings now. My son was 21 when he got into recovery. You know, I'm sponsoring a couple of guys at the moment. One of them's 28, the other one's 32. There's lots of young people in. You know, there's another girl that I know, she's 24 years of age. She's helping other women. There's lots and lots of young people in here today. And all it is for me, addiction, the way that I would define it is if you're doing something that you don't want to do,
Yeah.
and when you start, you can't stop, then maybe you might have a problem. You know, if going to doctors and getting prescriptions doesn't help you, if going to see counsellors and having talking therapies doesn't help you, then maybe the remedy that we've got in a 12-step program of recovery could be the answer for you. You know, and besides, anyway, this way of living has got its advantages for everybody, whether you're an addict or not. And it says the only requirement is a desire to stop. You don't have to be an addict of my calibre, you know, and you could probably find that you're going to find another really amazing way to live, which is going to benefit you and anyone that comes into your path, around your path, or in it afterwards, you know.
So it's a no-brainer, really.
Well, of course, you know, but what I find is most people have to be pretty badly mangled.
They have to have the gift of desperation.
The gift of desperation.
I've heard that a lot.
Absolutely, yeah. The gift of desperation. I think that the more pain you're in and the more broken you are, the more willing you're going to be to practice something disciplined to a level of, like, you know, trusting God, cleaning house and helping others.
What if someone's not a believer in God? Were you a believer when you came in?
This works if you believe in God and if you don't believe in God. You know, there's a whole chapter on the agnostic, which means without knowledge. You know, it's addressed to the agnostic and the atheist. An atheist is someone who just downright doesn't believe.
So it's a spiritual brokers rather than a religious one.
Well, absolutely, because they say that religion is for people that don't want to go to hell, and spirituality is for people that have already been there. Yeah. You know.
That's powerful.
It is powerful. And, you know, what it is well, because in the early days, the reason that they pulled away from the Oxford groups was because the Oxford group was a Christian organisation.
Oh, right, I didn't realise.
And Clarence Snyder pulled away with a load of the Oxford group boys that were Catholics because they said, well, we can't sit and do confession in a Christian church. Yeah. So they came up with a 12-step program of recovery, which didn't have any religious denomination.
It does mention God quite a bit, but that's in the book, isn't it? I suppose.
But they also mention creative intelligence, Tsar of the heavens, all of the words that have got capital letters to start with. The great fact even is written in capital letters, which are words of power. And I think that what they're trying to portray and put across is that power, as long as it isn't you and it isn't human. You know, I mean, look, come on, let's get it straight, okay? How fast does this earth spin? I've never fell off it yet. You know, and I don't know anyone else that has neither. And I know that the way that it spins around's got nothing to do with human power, alive or dead human power. You know, and then, the sun comes up and the sun goes down, but that's because we're turning. You know, the moon actually controls the oceans. Yeah. And those little turtles that go to the sea, I mean, who told them what direction to walk in? Do you know what I mean? With their little built-in sat-navs. That's a power greater than myself. Birds migrating. How do they know where to go? You know, it's like, it's absolutely unbelievable when you think about it. If you look at trees and you turn them upside down, they're exactly the same as the bronchioli. In the lungs, absolutely. Look at a leaf, and it's like a handprint. You know, we're all connected. Nature's something divine, connects us. Yeah,
there's a divinity there.
There's, you know, in the book it talks about a steel girder. Yeah, right. We think it's solid, don't we? But it's not. It's a mass of millions of little electrons all whirling around at immutable speed. Wow, like so precise that they look like it's solid. Huh. You know, because that's science. You know, just because we can't see something or we do see something doesn't mean it's exactly the way that it is. Wow. You know? Yeah. And I did, and it was literally through the book, you know, and through following its instructions that I've been able to learn so much about myself and to be able to really keep an open mind and explore what could be out there. Yeah. But as a result of that, I've just got the most amazing people now that I'm connected to. You know, I talk to people all over the world through Zoom. Yeah. It's amazing.
It's been such an absolute pleasure having you on the show and hearing your story and all of that knowledge you've got around this stuff. It's It's been an absolute treat, and I'm so glad that you chose to come down and see us. It was really good of you.
Thank you.
Celebrating your 14 years.
Yes.
That's amazing. We kind of end the show with me coming around giving you a hug. Is that all right?
That's cool, yeah.
Oop,
Absolutely.
that's all right. Lid's on there. Yeah. Great. Thank you, Chris.
It's
We'll
been a
get a few
pleasure.
pictures. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.